Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Thursday, January 4th. So, how are we doing with our New Year's resolutions? So, I thought today we would talk about grief and how to handle grief. But I wanted to first talk about the video that I did yesterday on the bar oil stuff. I want to point out that, you know, both Travis and Jason are correct. With the 10W30 and the used bar or the used car oil, neither one of them have got vegetable oil in them. And vegetable oil is what allows it to cling to the bar. Okay, they mix vegetable oil with like a 30 weight for the summer or the winter blend, and then it is thick. I mean, it just boop, boop, comes out of the container for the summer, right? Because it's got a lot of viscosity. Because not only are you getting the heat off the bar and the chain, you're getting the heat from being out in warmer temperatures. So it has to cling onto that chain and bar to keep it lubricated. And then when you set a saw down, yes, doesn't matter, you know, where you set it, you're going to get a puddle. And a lot of it is going to be from where it came back, kicked up underneath the cover, and it's going to just over time ooze down, okay? That's one. But the other is, I've seen it drain tanks where it gets so hot in the heat and stuff, where it actually siphoned it right out. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's key. All right, so welcome back. And what I want to talk about today is grief and and how we handle it on a regular basis. Because we do encounter grief more than once in our lives. And a lot of people would attribute grief to losing a loved one, okay, whether it be a parent, grandparent, sibling, aunt, somebody close to you, a mentor, and you would be correct. But there's also other forms of grief. And the other forms of grief that are less well known of, I can give you some examples. Let's take an old timer that's got whether it be an auto repair business, small engine repair business, and he gets to this certain point, and let's say whether it be health or what have you, that he has to sell his business and basically retire. There's grief involved in that because grief is a loss of something, okay? And for him, this is something that he's done all of his life. He doesn't know much other stuff to do. And whether he's willing to admit it or not, that he likes to go to the office every day and he likes to talk to people and talk to his employees if he's got them. And now he's sitting at home and, sad because he doesn't know what to do. See, that's another form of grief. Another example would be someone in a long-term relationship, and it doesn't matter who left who, but there's still grief involved. Because even though that person is still with you or around you, you no longer are what you once were. And for some, it's hard for them to overcome. I tell people that the more time you're here, the more experiences you'll have, the greater the wisdom. And what I can tell you is there is life after a relationship, okay? But let's go on, because we're still talking grief, okay? Another form of grief is, instead of the person passing away, they either develop dementia, Alzheimer's, and they no longer know, you as a person. And you're suffering grief because they're no longer there mentally, but you can see their body. And I've had people try to compete. Never compete on grief, okay, guys? But I've had people compete of how it's harder to have someone lose somebody completely than it is to have someone that still has that person there but has dementia and Alzheimer's. There's no comparison as far as I'm concerned. They're both equally hard, and it's how you as a person deal with it is what will make a difference. Some people never overcome it. Some people cannot pull themselves away. And when I hear of someone experience grief, okay, experiencing grief, the first thing I tell them is, number one, cut yourself some slack, all right? There's no time limit on how long it takes you to process and compartmentalize in your head and be able to move on, okay? And no matter what anybody else tells you, you've got your own speed. And other people will tell you, well, it's about time you let it go. You need to move on. You need to do this. You need to do that. The reason for that is because people are different, okay? Some people handle grief better than other people do. They say the sooner you can handle it and move forward, the better off you are. But I've seen a lot of people that so-called were handling it and moving forward, toss it to the side and try to pretend it's not there. And then it bites them in the ass down the road, and they don't understand what's going on. Why are they feeling so sad? It's because you haven't dealt with the loss in the positive, correct way. You haven't let go of that. I mean, it's all about letting go. I think for folks that, believe in heaven and believe in God, probably we can deal with it and be able to move forward quicker. But yeah, I've seen some Christians that they just couldn't let it go. They couldn't let that person go. So how do we really handle grief? I mean, how do we deal with it? How do we take care of it? Well, we understand what it is. It's sadness. I mean, look, I don't care how you shake it up. It's still the same thing. You know, we are emotional, and when we lose someone or we lose something close to us, that's the normal reaction. It's not celebrating with party balloons. No. It's, sadness, getting together with family. And you could say, well, that guy that had his business for all those years, why is he sad? He probably did good over the years, and now it's time to take a break. Maybe he can go fishing and stuff. Well, maybe he can. But it's going to take some time to grieve the loss of his old life before he can get into his new life. And some people just give up. I've seen that too. They just plain give up. And they just become sedimentary at home. And, as far as I'm concerned, they start to go farther than sadness into depression. And depression in itself, is a whole different monkey. Let's call it that, because it is. Because sadness isn't depression, and depression isn't sadness. Depression is chemical. Sadness is when you can look at something and know why you're sad. Depression is you could have everything going on in your life in a positive way and still not see it. That's the big difference. And a lot of times with both people that have depression, they have a tendency to have suicidal ideations on a regular basis, whereas somebody sad doesn't, if that makes any sense. I hear people get confused with depression and sadness, Oh, I'm feeling depressed. No, you're not. You're feeling sadness or being overwhelmed. Depression is depression. And it's like being a hamster on a spinning wheel. And no matter how fast you go or how slow you go, you can't escape. And no matter how hard you try to will yourself to feel better, it doesn't last. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times that needs some form of therapeutic help, whether it be medications, therapy. And let me also state right there, with sadness, if you are having a hard time trying to deal with it and put it where it needs to be, no one should look down on you if you get help. Okay? Actually, in my book, you're a bigger person if you do ask for help if you need help versus just keeping it to yourself and having it get worse. And this goes back to my main theme a lot of times with you younger, folks, guys and gals that are having a problem with it, and don't know what you should how to deal with it because nobody has shown you how to deal with it. Some people experience grief early in their lives, and others it's not until, they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. I know in my own life, it was 4 of us kids, and our first experience with grief, other than losing pets, was we lost our mother, and I think I was 9 at the time, 9 or 10, to breast cancer. But back then, they didn't have the what do you call it, the right treatments available that they do today. Today you don't hear too many people passing away with breast cancer, thank goodness. But I can remember, asking why. And a lot of the adults would say, well, it's because, it's her time to go. You know, and that they're in a better place. But when you're 9 years old, you don't quite understand that. But with the help of the adults that had experienced it before and had, over time had wisdom, showed me ways to get through it, right? Where a lot of you young folks that haven't experienced it or just experienced it here in the last couple of years, and you don't have a lot of family that's close to help you through the process. See, the biggest way to help you through the process is for your family to come together. But one of the biggest changes that I see in society is that families are no longer close like they used to be. And everybody is so busy these days doing their own thing, right? But I remember the second time I experienced grief, other than, the pets. For a lot of us when we were younger, that was our first experience with grief, was losing a pet. Pets are only with us for so many years. But I remember the second experience I had was I had just turned 12. It was the day before my birthday, and my father had passed away with what they deemed a heart attack, and he wasn't even 40 yet. Both my parents had lost their lives before 40, all right? And again, you have to go through a process. I mean, is it better when you're younger to have to go through it a couple times before you get older so that you know how to deal with it when you're older? No, I am not saying that. Please don't. But I'm just saying that we all handle grief differently. And I'm trying to put forth to you younger guys that have been here long enough, I've experienced it enough, and I found what helps get me through those darker times, right? So with today's society, with everybody, not close as a family, you're left to kind of deal with it yourself. And you don't have any wisdom to guide you through it. And again, I would tell you, if you're experiencing it, that cut yourself some slack. That's the first thing. There is no race in this game of who's going to finish first. There's not. You're going to have your own pace. And the way to deal with it is just to get it in front of you and realize what it is. And if you're lucky enough to have people around you that have wisdom, experiences, that could help you through it, then I think it's going to take place a little faster, okay? See, one of the ways I look at it, and maybe this might help you, is that we're all on this earth for just a short amount of time, okay? Some quicker than others, you know. And my theory, whether you believe it or not, is that there is a heaven and there is a hell. And here on earth is your hell. In just straight up terms. Hell is when you have all these emotions and when you have all these sadnesses and griefs and you're learning. And my feeling is that if you're still here, you have something to learn or you have something to teach. And if something were to happen to me today, then my feeling would be, well, your first thing is you're going to say, well, you wouldn't have any feeling. You're not here no long. Okay. But it would mean that there's something that I needed to teach somebody that it got taught. Or there's something that I needed to learn in that process that I learned. If that makes any sense. We're all going to deal with grief differently. And like I was saying to younger folks, cut yourself some slack. Realize what it is. It is what it is. It's a sadness. And whether it's a loss of a loved one or whether it's a breakup in a relationship, a breakup in a long friendship that you had, or, you know, I can remember back when I was in high school, there was a really popular kid. His name was Mike. And what ended up happening was Mike was riding with two other guys, and they had been drinking and horse-assing around, all right, in a vehicle. And they slammed into the bridge in the downtown. It was a town where I lived. Population of probably around 600-700. And they hit the steel girder on the bridge, and it killed all three of them instantly. All right? What started to happen, and you see that with a lot of schools now that are coming forward fast with counselors, is that there were a number of other kids that didn't know how to handle that grief of someone that they liked, that they looked up to, was no longer there. And there was one young lady that even tried to commit suicide by poisoning herself over the grief because she didn't know how to deal with that grief. She just thought it was the end of the world. And you see that in a lot of schools now. If something happens to one of the kids in that school, the adults, counselors come forward quickly because they know that children don't know how to deal with it and how to compartmentalize it because we haven't matured enough. We haven't had the time here. We haven't had the experiences. And I'm not saying the more experiences you have, the better it is you can deal with it or to deal with it. No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that the more experiences you have with it, I'm not so much saying the easier, but you understand it quicker and you know what's worked in the past, what's helped you, okay? And if anything, if you're older, share that wisdom with someone that you know is going through it. So cut yourself some slack. Understand that it takes time. Everybody's different. There's no, clock running that you have to take a certain amount of time to get done, and there's no race to the end. You have your own pace. If you get in a hurry, what I've seen too often is people will just take and tuck it away and not deal with it and say they're fine, only to, like I say, come back later on and then catch up with you. So, we've all seen cases, of where older couples have been together, for, married for like 40, 50 years, and one of them passes away. And then within a week, the other one's gone too. So, grief can also kill you in a way if you don't handle it correctly. So if you're going through grief today, or if you haven't dealt with something in the past of a friend, family member, of how to let it go, your life would be so much easier if you brought it back and then took care of it the right way and then let it go. Okay? And I want you to know there's so many different types of grief. Whether it's a loss of a loved one, a loss through Alzheimer's, dementia, a relationship that broke up, a close friendship that for whatever reason is no longer there, a loss of a business, a loss of a job. All of these are different forms of grief. And how you deal with them will make or break you. So I don't want you to tread lightly with it, but I want you to take a really good look at it. Understand what it is. It's grief. For the old fellow that lost his shop, maybe coming back to the shop one day a week, having him take part and feel like he's part of something instead of, all by himself. Or it's the relationship that fell apart. At the very least, talking with that other person and owning your part in the breakup, and at least walking away as friends, is one way to turn the grief into a positive, because they're still in your life, you're friends now, and you move forward. And there's another form of grief that we haven't touched on, and that is when parents with kids separate and get divorced, or if they're just partners and they split up. A lot of times the kids feel like it's that they're responsible because of them, and that's a form of grief, and that has to be dealt with in a positive way. You have two choices when it comes to divorce and separation, or couples walking away from each other if you have kids involved. Is the one thing you need to agree on right off the bat is what took place is between adults. It's between you and your partner. Has nothing to do with the kids. The kids are not responsible one iota for what took place in your relationship. The kids are there because of something that you and your partner decided to bring into the mix. What I can tell you is do not say anything derogatory. Do not say anything in front of those kids about the other parent in a negative way. Don't. Don't do it. And you two as parents, first thing I can tell you is you have to agree to disagree. That if you can't be together, that's fine. All right? Stop right there, it's fine. But you are going to work together as parents, mom and dad, with those kids. And those kids better be to the forefront of what's going on with you. You're the one that made that decision to have them, so that's why they're here. And that made you a parent. And there's nothing out there that says you're no longer a parent, you don't have any responsibilities. Where I see a lot of times, I mean, look guys, it's the guy that walks away and doesn't look back, it doesn't look at the responsibilities of being a father figure in those kids' lives. But that's another form of grief, all right? And one way to help the kids is to both be loving parents. Let your kids know it had nothing to do with them. They're the result of. You don't need to go that far. You just need to let them know that you love them, you're there for them, no matter day or night. And work together. If you are that person that has a family member that has Alzheimer's, dementia, there's not a lot I can help you with other than to just, hang in there, cut yourself some slack, and don't be afraid to start grieving when you have that loss of whether it be a parent, sibling, whoever, that they no longer know you. And enjoy the moments of where you have with them while they're still here. See, my mother-in-law passed away from Alzheimer's. And it was hard for everybody. And as it progressed, it was a blessing to us as a family to have her go to a better place. I would never wish on anybody to have a family member with Alzheimer's. So I'll round this up and end this up with, if you're having problems with trying to deal with grief, no matter what stages you're at, whether it be a death in the family, a loss of something, a loss of anything is going to cause grief. It's going to have different degrees. Don't take it personal if people try to tell you to get over it and move forward. That's the worst thing you could tell somebody that's trying to deal with grief. And a lot of times people that take longer can't understand why the other person, it may be a sibling, a sister, after one of their parents had passed away, that they're doing so well and they're happy and this and that, and you're still stuck in that, trying to deal with it. Don't rush it. Okay, that's all I can tell you is don't rush it. And take care of it the right way. And if you do need help, please, please, please. In my eyes, you're the bigger person if you ask for help. And they do have counselors that just deal with grief, all right? That you can go and they'll help you work through it. It's a process, okay? So hopefully this video is going to help some of you, help with the wisdom that I have to deal with grief. But understand there's so many different types of grief, and they all affect us. And how we deal with it will define us. So starting today, if you have not dealt with the grief the correct way, it may be time to bring it back and finally put it to rest. And a lot of times what you will find is your life becomes so much better because you couldn't figure out what was missing and what was causing sadness all the time. And it was that grief that you had tucked. On that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for watching. Get help if you need it.